Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the amazing Riley Lorden. Riley, how you doing today, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Dude, I am super stoked to have you here. I've been a huge fan for a long time, but before we talk about why you're here, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. Riley has been a horror fan for about as long as he can remember. He received horror collectibles as gifts as early as his fourth birthday. That to me is super legit. It's your fourth birthday and you're getting, Freddy and Jason plushies. Like that to me is the dopest shit ever. But you were told you couldn't take him to preschool for show and tell, which is, kind of a damper on the whole thing because that's the whole reason we got toys when we were kids. By the age of 9, you fell in love with, the idea of making your own horror movies. And alongside a group of friends, you made a whole bunch of short films, fan films, went on to get a bachelor's degree in media studies and specialization in broadcast production. And you continue to make films to this day, as well as running the horror gaming YouTube channel Slash and Cast. So we got a lot to dissect here, my friend. What made you decide this is what you want to do with your life? You want to go and get a bachelor's. This is what you want to really tackle with your life as filmmaking.
I've been into the genre for so long, like you said, 4 years old. By that point, was already getting those collectibles, and it was specifically those like 12-inch Mezcos, like the plush ones that have the sound box in them. I still have those. They're sitting in my parents' storage somewhere. They're probably worth a pretty penny now, I would think.
I'll say, yeah.
Yeah, they're still in the
get them out of
box.
storage.
Yeah, still in the box, still chilling there. But yeah, I mean, for as long as I can remember, been into horror, and that just when you're so obsessed with a genre like that, and you watch those movies over and over again, it just kind of naturally transitioned into wanting to make my own. I remember by the age of 9, I wanted to really do like crossover movies. I wanted to I think at the time like Blinky 500 was pretty big even then, making all those fan films. I remember seeing like Freddy and Michael have a crossover battle, and there was Michael and Jason, and I loved that idea. And Freddy versus Jason, I was obsessed with at the time. So just wanted to do those crossover movies, make a Freddy versus Jason versus Michael film is what I always wanted to do. Now, not so much. I don't think that movie would work so well, but as a kid, wanted to see that. I think that's kind of what started it all. And I had a group of friends who basically just kind of followed in my footsteps, listened to my crazy talks, and we just went and we started making the most random shorts ever. And it wasn't long before that transitioned into fan films, and here we still today doing the same type of stuff.
And it's amazing because I've always said I want to get a crossover of A Nightmare on Elm Street and Hellraiser. I would love to see Freddy become maybe if he doesn't even go up against Pinhead, but see him become a Cenobite. Like the lament configuration becoming part of Freddy's glove. Like I just think that whole idea to me would be so dope, man. I would love to see that happen. So the ideas of all these things to me are just super fucking incredible. And when you're such a young age, like I've told the story 1,000 times, man, and this is complete. If my mom was still here, she would verify the story 100%. The first time I ever got grounded was because I wouldn't stop talking about how amazing the end of Jason Goes to Hell was when Freddy's glove came up and took Jason's mask down to hell. My mom was like, I'm tired of hearing about it. Stop talking about it. I was like, Mom, you need to understand. I ended up getting grounded because I wouldn't stop talking about it to everybody I knew. So that was our end game. That was our Infinity War, was seeing a Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember I'm pretty young. I was 7 when Versus came out. But I still managed to go see it in theaters, and I was actually did my research even then. This is kind of like just as internet starting to pick up, right? I still was obsessed with like Kane Hodder. I feel like I knew everything about him at that time, and even at the age of 7, I was so upset that he wasn't cast as Jason. I wrote a letter to New Line about it. I imagine my mom never sent it, but I wrote it. It was strongly worded, huh? So
that's incredible, man. And you're right. Kane, he did for Jason, like you can't put into words what he did for the character of Jason Voorhees, right, with what he was willing to go through just to make these things happen. So before we get started, I do want to talk a little bit about Slash and Cast as well. What made you want to start doing a YouTube channel, specifically a gaming YouTube channel?
Well, it just kind of happened. The gaming side of it just kind of happened. My senior year of high school, we started a podcast called the MWM Project, which covered everything. It was movies, sports, video games, whatever. It was anything we wanted to talk about. And we figured out pretty quickly that like the hour and a half podcast, like an hour of it just kept being about horror movies. So we're like, maybe we should just do a horror movie podcast. And then we locked an interview with B. Harrison Smith, who directed Death House. And
Love it.
that day we were like, okay, maybe now's the time. So we made the title Slash and Cash, just kind of popped into our head going through a bunch of options. And that day we said, okay, we're starting it. Harrison Smith will kick it off. And we just kind of ran from there. And with all the Kickstarter and the excitement surrounding Friday the 13th, the game, we were covering that every week because I was just obsessed with it. I mean, the idea of a horror IP video game was just the coolest thing in the world to me. So yeah, we just kept covering it. And before long, I mean, we were just we invested into a gaming PC and started recording footage and the virtual cabin and just all of that. It just kind of happened, and Wes Keltner came on the show and that gave us a good kickstart there. And since that, it was the week before the game came out, we posted our first legitimate gaming video and we just haven't stopped since.
That's awesome, man. And like, I wish we could finally get some fucking rights settled so we could at least build back onto the game. Like, let's just, I mean, we know that it's been settled now, but give us some more of the game, man. Like, we were having such a fun time with that game. And how many games have you guys played on the channel?
I mean, we've played a lot, especially a lot of those smaller indie games because the asymmetrical genre just keeps kind of expanding and there's so many people who are trying to do their own take on it. I mean, but we've hit, F13, Dead by Daylight, now with TCM. You have Killer Clowns coming, Evil Dead the game. So we ran through all of those, but some of the smaller ones that stand out, like I think Soul at Stake was a really cool idea. You have Last Year the Nightmare, although it's now just last year. They're making a comeback right now. So yeah, so horror gaming in general, we've smaller game or non-asymmetrical games. We've hit like Alien Isolation, Aliens Fireteam Elite. That was another one that we covered quite a bit. But yeah, now we've kind of like locked into the asymmetrical multiplayer space, and we're sticking with that because it's a little bit more niche. There's not everybody in the world covering it.
Well, let me ask you this: like, if you had to choose, you're going to be on a deserted island. They just happen to have all the essentials to play a video game. You can take one video game with you. What's the game you're taking? Horror video game. Let me specify that. You can take one horror game with you. What are you taking?
Wow. Well, my gut is like, okay, I want to take TCM because it's about to come out, and I just can't wait to play that game again. But I still think at this point, I think Friday the 13th still holds a trophy for me. I think it's really special, and it changed the genre completely.
Yep.
I know Dead by Daylight gets a ton of credit, and it deserves credit. I mean, they certainly have expanded that IP space and allowed a whole bunch of horror IP to come into the gaming world again. I think without F13, I think it might die off. Like we wouldn't be here talking today if it wasn't for F13. So that's a very, very special game. And I've been playing it a ton again. I mean, streaming it, almost daily, and it just doesn't get boring. It's crazy.
Right. See, that I felt like that about that. And also I really, really got into Evil Dead the game. Like I thought that was a lot of fun. It's just coming up with the time, man. So I'm really happy for what you guys are doing. And if this is something you guys are into, make sure you're checking it out because I have all of Slash and Cast's social media links and the YouTube link all down in the description. So I know that you guys love horror. I know you love gaming. You are not going to be disappointed. So make sure you're following them on social media. Make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel because that way you can stay up to date. Like you said, TCM's coming out. Soon we're going to have Killer Clowns coming out. You're going to get a lot of what they're doing with these games as well. So if you get stuck at a certain point, these guys can help you out. So in order, to make horror short films, in order to do a horror YouTube channel based on gaming or doing interviews or anything like that, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now I would like to go back to the past, Riley, and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie, and the first horror movie that you watched was.
So this is always a tough question for me because I've been asked this a lot, and I don't have a legitimate answer. Like I don't know what that actual first one is because my mom introduced me to the genre. She was into slasher movies, so I assume it was some sort of slasher film. I just don't know which one it specifically was. My guess would actually be Scream, if anything, but I'm still not sure. But my earliest memory of watching one of those, of watching a horror movie, was Friday the 13th Part 7. of all the films. Of course, it's part 7, but I remember the DVD menu so clearly back in my old house, and the iconic score in part
Mhm.
7. I think the part 7 score is super underrated, but they have that blaring in the DVD menu, which they don't do anymore. You know, menus have
Right.
gotten so boring, it kills me. They need to bring back cool, customized menus. But part 7 had a
And
really
you always
cool
get that
one.
one little cut, and then it
Yeah,
starts back over
yeah. Then we
again.
just keep
Like,
looping.
yes, dude.
Yeah. The amount of times that I would like fall asleep to watching a movie like that, and you get woken up in the middle of the night with the music blaring off the DVD menu. But I mean, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I would love for that to come back. But yeah, part 7 was cool because the DVD cover has Kane standing just menacingly as part 7 Jason. It's just I still my favorite look is Jason. I think it looks incredible, and so that was the DVD menu as well. And yeah, that's locked into my brain. I had to be maybe 4, like maybe 4 years old watching that. And it was just the coolest thing in the world. Been obsessed with Kane ever since as well.
And he's a gem. I don't know if you've ever gotten to meet him, but he is a
Yeah,
true hero of the people.
yeah. I actually went to. This is a fluke. If you never heard this story, it's an interesting one. But I actually went to college with his oldest son. So
Oh,
I was already obsessed with Kane. Grew up loving him. I swear to God, I did not stalk him to make that happen. To follow his son to college, it was just a fluke. Yeah, I went to play football at Beloit College, and his son was there playing lacrosse, and we just happened to cross paths. And so I've known
that's
Kane. He's like a second dad to me at this point.
that's so awesome, man. I'm super happy for you because especially when you've looked up to somebody for such a long time and you meet them and
Yeah.
they are the genuine sweet person that you were hoping that they would be. Nothing better than that, man. So I'm super happy that you've gotten the chance to, meet this guy and you love the guy. Like that's amazing, man. I'm super happy for you.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's an incredible dude. And what I tell you, one thing that a lot of people don't know about him is that he's extremely smart. Extremely
Mhm.
smart guy. His whole family is actually. But yeah, he's a really, really smart guy, and I don't think you would know that just because of all of like the childish pranks he plays.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a kid at heart, but man, he's so smart. It's pretty unreal.
that's amazing, man. I'm actually jealous just because the guy is so legit. That's so cool.
Yeah, he's a
Um,
good dude.
and horror started, in one of his breakout roles, I would say, being Jason in part 7. That's at least probably one of his most memorable roles. But which scene in the film would you say it was that affected you the most?
I think there's so many cool scenes in there, and there's actually two that come to my head. One is when he comes out of the water, when he comes out of the lake for the first time. It's that iconic shot behind him, and you just see all the grueling detail of that suit he's wearing with the rib cage showing. It's just an amazing shot. And that was another one that we recreated in Roseblood, that Cody
Mhm.
Newton and Peter Anthony just recreated perfectly. And then the other one is Maddie's death scene, where she's in the barn. She just had the whole makeover, and she's leaning against the wall, and she hears Jason on the other side. She knows he's there, and you got the lightning strike and all the blue lighting, and we're sitting there. We see her. There's a wall, and then Jason's in the background, and just slowly getting closer. And then, of course, he ultimately punches through the wall and takes her. That was another one that Peter insisted we recreated in Roseblood, and it just worked out perfectly. So now those ones are like really locked into my heart because now that I watched them growing up and then recreated them in real life,
Right.
like yeah, definitely can't forget those ones.
And that's amazing because Peter's a great guy.
Yeah.
I love Peter to death. I loved Roseblood. I loved what you guys did with Roseblood. It was phenomenal. If you guys haven't seen it, I do have the link for that down in the description as well. It's funny, I haven't got to talk about this movie on the podcast. And like 2 weeks ago, I talked about it for the first time, and it was somebody else's first horror movie. And the conversation kept going back to Roseblood just because of how much that movie means to me. Like, I love Peter. I love Lar. I love everything you guys did on the film. So I'm really excited to see the direction that it's going to go in the future. But it's weird. 'Cause my next question is kind of, you talked about Maddie's death. Talking a little bit about the deaths in the film. Would you say that was the one that like stuck with you the most?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think it's the death itself. It wasn't something that was like scary to watch. It was just so cool to watch. Even when I was a kid, it was just that slow. It's kind of like Jaws, it's
Yeah.
just slowly building up and knowing that he's there and just slowly pushing his way closer. Always loved it. And the lighting's just perfect. When you
Mhm.
have a moment in a slasher movie where it's like you can see some actual like cinematic and cinematography skill, I love that, and that was a scene that just showed a ton of skill.
Yeah.
Great lighting, great shots. It's written well. It's suspenseful, and that's what John Carl Buechler brought to Part 7 that a lot of other these slash movies haven't done. And have incredible practical effects, incredible cinematography, and just actually strong storytelling. The movie doesn't get the credit it deserves, honestly.
No, it doesn't. And I'm going to be corny. I'm going to be cliche. The sleeping bag for me is always going to be one that I love.
Of
I
course,
love that kill, man.
of course.
As a kid, it scared me so bad because me and my friends would always go, tenting out in the backyard and you have your sleep. That's just one that just scared me so bad. Like, so I'll always be partial to that one. But, Friday the 13th is a huge franchise now. And it's a franchise that even though we've been in, copyright limbo hell forever, people have always built on it with fan films, and you even get films like why can't I think of the name of it, the F-13 Fanboy, which isn't truly a fan film,
yeah,
but it is one of those films that transcends the genre because it's not quite a fan film, but it's not quite a franchise film either. But
right.
That's what this means to people. Now, which film in the franchise would you say is your absolute favorite?
I think, I always go back and forth. I'm pretty sure I'm locked into Part 4, at least right now. I think the final chapter is my favorite. I often will, like, Part 6 is very close. I really like Part 6, but I think I prefer the more like the scarier side of the character, and I think the characters stand out a bit more in Part 4.
Oh yeah, Part 4. I think Part 4 is probably the best made one of the bunch.
Yeah.
When it comes to complete character development, because you got like there's so many different amazing characters throughout the whole franchise, but usually they're just one off and done. Like there's not a whole bunch of the characters that are great. Part 4 has a bunch of great characters. Part 6 is my favorite. It's just one of the ones. I think that's the one I watched the most as a kid. But I'll always have a special spot for Jason Goes to Hell. That's for me. It goes back and forth between 6 and Goes to Hell. I love both those
Really,
films.
that's
So fucking much.
interesting.
Dude, I love Jason Goes to Hell. Like I could talk about that movie for hours. I love the Necronomicon references. I love, how they couldn't quite say it, but the dagger that has to kill Jason is the Kandarian dagger.
Right.
I just love it as its own standalone film. I think it's fantastic. Creighton Duke, one of the best characters in the whole franchise, which we got a little bit of insight into him in Roseblood as well. But so we know, horror started with you with Friday the 13th, Part 7. We know it goes back and forth between Part 6 and Part 4 as your favorite in the franchise. But now, my buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Riley? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
I mean, it's not even well. I guess it is kind of close, but I would say easily I locked into this one as well. It's the original Halloween, and
Okay.
it's a very, very special movie to me. Scream is very close, and I still Halloween. I mean, Scream doesn't exist without Halloween. It's as simple as that. But Halloween's very special to me. Actually, like, you can't see it, but right there is an original Halloween poster. It's a blue box poster. It's like the most special thing in my collection.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. If I ever like desperately have to sell something and I'm broke, I will still keep that with me on the streets. All right. We will, it'll be right there. Yeah.
That'll be the
incredible
blanket you're using.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't let it go.
Right.
Yeah. That's Halloween's is very special. And it's because I think Halloween's like the perfect formula for slash movies. Are you a fan of Halloween Kills?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm one of the rare ones that I very, very much liked Halloween 2018. I thought Halloween Kills was good. I mean, like, I can get past the dialogue, but there's just certain things in it that I think bring it down a little bit.
Sure.
I think Ends is a phenomenal movie. I think Ends is a dog shit ending to that trilogy.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not a huge Halloween fan. So like, I came into Halloween later in life after I had gotten my Friday the 13th, my Nightmare on Elm Streets, my Child's Plays. And I always just thought it was kind of slow and boring for a slasher. Now that I'm older, I look back, I respect it, but I didn't watch Halloween until I was probably 10, 11. And I had been watching all these other slashers up until then. And I was like, is this guy going to do anything ever or just hide in a bush? But I think that the new trilogy was great. I would have liked a better ending for Laurie. I thought the Ends should have focused more on those two. Like I said, I think it's a fantastic standalone film.
Yeah.
Watching it as the end of a trilogy bums me the fuck out. But I think Kills is the closest we get to like a, true, just bad, scary, dominant Michael Myers. I mean, obviously you had it in the Rob Zombie films, but what he does in Kills is just fucking brutal, man, and I love it.
I have a lot of fun with Kills, but it starts to creep into more of like a splatter movie than it is a slash movie in my head. Because like what I see as the perfect formula for a slash movie is good characters, a good story, even if it's simple, and then you have the kills on top of it, right? And so with Kills, it's like there is no story. The
Right.
characters, okay, I get. I mean, not so much in Kills because all it is it's Evil Dies Tonight 100 times, and so it kind of runs into a splatter movie to me. So I didn't like that as like a movie. I didn't think it was a good movie, but it's a lot of fun. You could have a
Yeah.
lot of fun with Kills for sure. But I when I see Halloween, like I want those three pieces. I want those characters that matter. And obviously, the original Halloween, it's not like it has incredible dialogue. There's so much cheesy shit in there. It's not like it's amazing acting. But they found a way to capture the simplicity of a small town. It's got an incredible score. Dean Cundy as a DP makes it, it takes to the next level to have that steady cam work in there and just a complete understanding of how lighting works. So it's got everything going for it. I just respect the hell out of that movie, and I could watch it on loop.
Well, and I've always said, like, as an adult now, I think Halloween is probably the scariest of the big three.
Yeah,
Freddy and Nightmare, Jason and Friday the 13th, and then Michael and Halloween. Michael is just the next door neighbor that snapped, like he's a
yeah,
real dude. Freddy is a guy in your dreams, which is terrifying, not very realistic. Jason drowned when he was a kid, came back as a monster, whatever. But Michael is just the fuck. He had the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. Like you can't kill the boogeyman. Like these are the things to me that, as an adult, scare me more. And I've always said, even though Halloween, if I'd have watched it early, I was blessed, man. I grew up in a video store. My mom and dad owned a mom and pop video store, so I had movies at my disposal all the time. So I didn't watch Halloween till later on. And like I said, it was a slow burn for me. And as a little kid, I didn't want a slow burn. I wanted to see somebody shoot a harpoon into a girl's eye, you know? So going to watch that, but you go back and watch it now, even though I don't think it started the slasher genre, I think it perfected it. In that movie, you get just as much of your villain as you do your hero. And you get that juxtaposition of the two and what they're each doing. And, in Black Christmas, you don't see Billy
right.
very, very much. In Psycho, you think it's mom the whole time. You don't see the villain. But Halloween took that and it made it look, we're going to put your villain on the forefront as well. And you're going to see just as much about your villain as you do your hero. And it perfected that final girl circuit type thing. So I got a lot of respect and a lot of love for the OG film, because without Halloween 78, I can promise you and I would not be here talking right now, because the horror genre would not be what it is today without that film.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. When I was a kid, I don't really think I enjoyed it that much. I think I was the same way. I don't know when it happened, but something just kind of clicked. And I just became obsessed with that style of filmmaking.
Well, see, I think I still got to hold it lower because I've been married to Ashley for 18 years. We got married right out of high school, and that's her favorite franchise. So I think I still got to put it down a little bit just so I can be like, no, you didn't rub off on me. But she definitely did. Like when she was like, listen, let's just sit down and watch it together and watch the beauty of the filmmaking. Because I watched it once when I was a kid. I never watched it again. I was like, no, that was boring. I'm not watching that. She was like,
Yeah.
babe, listen, let's just watch it. And I was like, this is a masterpiece. Like the way that they, the timing, the pacing, the score, John Carpenter score, like it's just so fucking phenomenal, man. So, yeah, I've had an amazing time, Riley, talking to you about your first horror movie, your favorite horror movie, what these movies have done for you, talking about Slash and Cast. But we always go back to the same question to end this. We're going to go back to to Friday the 13th, part 7. I was going to say Jason Goes to Hell. And what we're going to do is we are going to rank Friday 7 on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're strictly ranking Friday 7 on what this movie means to you and how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. O'Reilly, what would your ranking of The New Blood be?
Oh man, this is because the thing is, all these years later, I still go back to it. Like I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times, so it's obviously was really effective. But if I was like talking about how it affected, me getting into filmmaking or in where I'm at now, I wouldn't think it'd be all that effective. It would be like the last film, not the last, but I wouldn't source it, right? That wouldn't be my
Right.
go-to to source for filmmaking. I'll give it a 3.5 just because I know how important that movie is to me, and the fact that it's still stuck in my brain, that DVD menu being there, it it's gotta be pretty effective. But I know that there's more I'd go to in terms of what overall like just changed my outlook on filmmaking.
Sure. Well, and like I said, this is a movie that a lot of people put it towards the bottom of their list, but they really did something. They tried something new with this film. They brought on a protagonist that wasn't going to run away from Jason. That was like, you know what, bring it. Let's do it. So I really respect this movie. I love what this movie did. I wish we could have gotten like an unrated version where we could have gotten a lot better version of the kills, but
100%.
we're
Yeah.
grasping at straws there now. I know I said this at the beginning, guys, but we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, make sure you're following Slash and Cast on social media, as well as subscribing to their YouTube channel. And you don't have to go far because those links are right down in the description. So, Riley, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel more than you know. And follow SledgeHammer Horror on social media. All our links are down in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay who you are, and we'll see you guys soon.